All right, guys, welcome to the first study of the book of Deuteronomy. How exciting is this? We have been literally going through Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, 4 books out of the 5 books of the Pentateuch, and this is the 5th and final book written by Moses. All right, so let's go to our in-house guy that knows everything right away, Kevin McElravy's in the house. Kevin, what does Deuteronomy mean?
Second law.
Second law, man. Did you guys see that?
It was with confidence.
Right on. That's like my 735, and it's a second law. Kevin, well done today.
But this one's correct.
You're right.
That's true. Good point.
Okay, let's clarify what the second law means in Deuteronomy. Okay, let's give a couple backdrops here. Kevin, if you would go to Deuteronomy 17:18, this is where we get this meeting of Deuteronomy. Remember, Moses is writing Deuteronomy. And in Deuteronomy 17:18, it says, when he is seated on his royal throne, he is to write a copy of this instruction for himself on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priests. So you're supposed to make a second copy. You know, we've been talking about this. This would be awful.
Yeah, it'd be good to have a copy machine.
They have no copy machine. This dude is handwriting it, and everybody's watching him write it. And you'd be like, hey, can you pick up the pace a little bit here? This is taking too long. And this second copy doesn't mean he's creating a whole new wave of laws. It means literally, I want to take this copy of what we've been talking about, and I want to write another one. And that's kind of the beauty of what's taking place in really all the book of Deuteronomy. Think about this. It's the law being revealed at Mount Sinai, right? That was revealed at Mount Sinai to a whole second generation of Israelites. So this is your audience, anybody that's under the age of 40, and they're at the plains of Moab. And so Moses is releasing, hey, by the way, this is all that's taken place. Now I'm going to share with each one of you. It's an incredible picture, but the reality is that for Moses, like, this is kind of his will. This is his obituary. This is his, hey guys, this is all I got, and I want to communicate to each one of you, get ready, because you're coming into the promised land. And the problem is that he's not going with them. You remember the whole, I want you to speak to the rock, and Moses, out of a bad habit, he decided to strike the rock. Well, because of that, Moses says, guys, I need you to get ready. Taylor, you were mentioning earlier about how really Deuteronomy is, like, this is Moses' last message. This is one sermon. And Taylor's actually right.
Why are you surprised?
Why are you laughing about that?
Good job, Taylor.
BibleProject.com.
And so here's what I love. It is one message, but within it, it's 3. So really you're going to see in Moses, he has 3 sermons found in Deuteronomy 1, found in Deuteronomy 5, and then Deuteronomy 27. So 3 sermons, but all of this is for the youngins. Really, that's what it is. It's for the youngins who are getting ready to enter into the promised land. Now think about this. He's going to build his case saying God was faithful in the past. He's going to continue to build his case that says, you should what to expect today. And then he also says, by the way, God's going to be faithful in the future. And so over and over and over, he paints a picture about God has been with us, he will be with you, and he is with you right now. It's an incredible message. So now we're going to start in Deuteronomy 3. I think that's a great place to start, but the problem is I got to cover Deuteronomy 1 and 2 as well. The last time we had to cover 3 chapters, really, I think was in Genesis. Don't worry about grasping all of it. Okay, just one little piece at a time. Now, as we paint this picture of Deuteronomy, you guys know, I'm going to go back here to the paintings. You know that we've been given one word for each book of the Bible. We've already covered 4 of them, and how every one of these, the seed, the deliver, atonement, the rock, they all pointed to the Messiah. So now let's jump to the new painting of Mindy's. My cousin Mindy from Calgary, Alberta. An unbelievable, powerful picture. And what we're going to do is we're going to unpack each one of these items, this overall picture, over the course of time as we go through the 5th and final book of the Pentateuch. But I just want to tell you the one word for Deuteronomy, Davarim in the Hebrew, the one word for Deuteronomy is prophet. And I love this because, Kevin, if you would you go to the one text in Deuteronomy 18:15? You're going to see Moses continue to reveal himself as a prophet to the people of the Israelites. Like over and over, he's going to release a word, speak into them. Well, ultimately, it's going to point to another prophet. In Deuteronomy 18:15, he writes, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your own brothers. You must listen to him. Moses prophetically releases a word, there it is, that there's going to be a prophet that comes from within the brothers, and you need to listen to him. Now, this is a really cool picture because all throughout Scripture, and we'll cover so much in the book of Deuteronomy about Jesus playing that role of the prophet. Jesus is the prophet that Moses is talking about. And what you're going to see in the New Testament is that constantly, the Jews are always pitting Moses and Jesus together. You know what I mean? They're always trying to butt heads. You'll see that in John 8. But then in Hebrews 3, just to really give you this backdrop, okay? Hebrews 3 verse 3, it just says, "For Jesus was considered worthy of more glory than Moses, just as the builder has more honor than the house." So here you have Moses writing, there's going to be a prophet that comes from me. Now in Hebrews, the writer in the New Testament, he says, by the way, Jesus is going to be greater, than Moses. And then it says in Hebrews 3 verse 4, "Now every house is built by someone, but the one who built everything is God." Now watch this in verse 5. "Moses was faithful as a servant in all God's household." So in other words, Moses was legit. Moses was a prophet. Moses was a faithful servant as a testimony, watch this, to what would be said in the future. How awesome is this? How Hebrews 3:5 ties into Deuteronomy 18:15. Moses says there's going to be a prophet. Now in Hebrews, it says, what he says is going to be a testimony about what is coming in the future. Now watch this in verse 6. "But Christ was faithful as a son over his household. And we are that household if we hold on to the courage and the confidence of our hope." All right. Literally, this could be an entire message for an entire week about the comparison of Moses and Jesus. But all I want you to understand in the book of Deuteronomy is that Moses is saying there's going to be a prophet that comes. And then when you have in Hebrews, it says, what Moses says is going to be a testimony to the future. And then, by the way, Jesus is that. It's pretty powerful. And so, Jeff.
I love what the writer of Hebrews knew he was speaking to the Jewish people at this time, and how much weight that would have carried.
Yeah, and
it's a lot.
It's a ton of weight. And then when you jump into the New Testament and you see all of the back and the forth, the law and Jesus and the tension of Moses and him, and then you realize that Jesus quoted from every book of the Pentateuch. Then it says Jesus also quoted from the Psalms. Jesus quoted 8 of the prophets. And then the book of Deuteronomy, Jesus actually quotes at least 16 times. So there's many things that point to the prophet, and the prophet meaning Jesus Christ. All right, let's go to Deuteronomy 1 very quickly. We're going to summarize Deuteronomy 1 and Deuteronomy 2 so we can jump into Deuteronomy 3. But in Deuteronomy 1, you basically have a review in the first 6 verses. And then what you have is that God starts talking about in verses 6 through 18 about how God is going to continue to honor His promises, and He's going to continue to bring forth leadership to make these things unfold. And at the very end of Deuteronomy 1, the classic Israelite, you wouldn't have an Israelite story if you didn't talk about an Israelite rebelling. So here you have the rebellion at Kadesh Barnea, and we know that everything happened at Kadesh. Everything. It just felt like somebody's either dying, somebody's either rebelling. Somebody's either dying or somebody's rebelling. And so Deuteronomy 1 basically is a backdrop to prepare you for Deuteronomy 2. In Deuteronomy 2, then you have in the first 25 verses, you have the journey in the Transjordan. So Kevin, when I say the term Transjordan, what do you think of?
It's on the east side of the Jordan.
So any of the land of the promised land, on the east side of the river, you have the Transjordan. And so those 25 verses, you remember this whole story about how, guess what? The Reubenites, right? The Gadites, they're traveling through the land, and then they realize, wow, we kind of like this place. So anyway, and then it gets into verses 26 through 37, Deuteronomy 2, about the victory over Sihon and Og. And so then that end of Deuteronomy 2 really begins the transition for us in Deuteronomy 3, where I really want to camp out. Now remember, here's the backdrop. Moses is releasing his first sermon in Deuteronomy. His audience is all of the people under the age of 40. Why? Because everybody else is dead, right? Everybody else is dead. So he's releasing his first sermon. And so what he's going to do is that all of these things have already taken place. He's talking about scenarios that have already taken place. If there's one thing I think this group would really appreciate is that it's really hard to fathom sometimes, has this happened or has this not happened yet? Is this in Numbers or is this in Exodus? Oh yeah, it's in both. Oh yeah, wait, no, now it's in Deuteronomy. And you're like, oh my goodness, what is where? And so just as a backdrop, Moses is telling I wanted to say the Moabites, but no, he's at the plain of Moab, and he's releasing this word to the Israelites, and he's saying, guys, this is how you can get ready, okay? This is how you're going to get ready to go into the promised land. So he's going to give them gentle reminders as a prophet. Now watch this. In verse 1, and Warren Wiersbe, our good friend, this is kind of cool. What he does is that, Warren Wiersbe, and just so you guys know, I don't personally know Warren Wiersbe. I've never met him. I feel like, Nadia asked me yesterday, she's like, Dad, do you ever talk about me at school? I was like, well, Nadia, actually, because you have imaginary friends, so do I. So Warren Wiersbe, do you know Nadia has her own school? Oh yeah, man, she's got her own school, but it's full on imaginary. And I feel like sometimes I kind of do the same thing. All right, so Wiersbe just says this. Remember, in order to get into the promised land, you have to have preparation for more battles. So it says this. Now, in Deuteronomy 3, it says, then we turned and went up on the road to Bashan. Remember, he's talking to the Israelites, so he's reliving what has already happened. We went up the road to Bashan, and Og, great name, king of Bashan, came out against us with his whole army to do battle at Edrei. So there's a king, he's coming, and he's ready to address the Israelites. Now in verse 2, but the Lord said to me, don't worry about it. Don't fear him, for I have handed him over to you along with his whole army and his land. Do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon. Like, to me, that's an incredible, oh man, okay. So what you're seeing is that what happened in Sihon, don't worry about it, it's going to happen to Og as well. And so you can relax, don't fear, don't worry about it, even though they're all coming, I've got it covered. And so it said in verse 3, so the Lord our God also handed over to us Og, king of Bashan, right, and his whole army to us. We struck him until there was no survivor left. Now, I want to describe Bashan just a little bit because I think this is important. Bashan, also known as Argob, okay? The Nelson's commentary describes this area as fertile, heavily forested plateaus. And it was famous for really two things. First, it was famous for Bashan, okay? It was famous for oaks. So Kevin, if you would go to Isaiah 2, verse 13. And when you think of Bashan, Isaiah 2:13 says, against all the cedars of Lebanon, lofty and lifted up, against all the oaks of Bashan. Bashan is known as this wooded forest area, oaks. Now, it's also known as major livestock. Why this is important, I'll get to that in a little bit. But Kevin, if you would, I want you to go to Isaiah 32, verse 14. Isaiah 32, verse 14. So Bashan is known as a place that has oaks, but then also watch what it says. It says, for the palace will be forsaken, the busy city abandoned, the hill and watchtower will become barren places forever. The joy of, and for the sake of radio, we'll just say the joy of wild donkeys and a pasture for flocks. And so here you have, it is a place known as a livestock. It has tons of wild donkeys. It's a pasture place for flocks. And so now, just keep that in the back of your mind. So Bashan is known as oaks and livestock, okay? Kind of important to understand as we get to more of the story, okay? So kind of put that in the back of your mind. Now it says in verse 4, in verse 3, Kevin. So the Lord our God handed Og over to us. He handed the king of Bashan and his whole army to us. We struck him until there was no survivor left. Now in verse 4, we captured all the cities at that time. There wasn't a city that we didn't take from them. 60 cities. Can you imagine this? Og, the king of Bashan, comes, right? In the whole region of Argob, 60 cities. And so we already know, without even going any further, we know that this area is, because we have 60 cities, we can know that it's wooded, and we know there's a whole lot of livestock. So then it continues on in verse 5. All of these were fortified. All these cities, 60 cities, were fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides a large number of rural villages. When you have this implication of high walls and gates and bars and that everything is taller, you can know, and we know this already for a fact, that many of them could have been giants. Like literally, just so you can prove that point, Kevin, if you go to Deuteronomy 3, verse 11, probably one of the most random verses, but one of the more entertaining. It says, only Og, king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of Rephaim. Look how big his bed was. We're talking about a king's bed here. His bed was made of iron. Isn't it in Rabbah of the Ammonites, just so you know geographically? This is actually the current place of Ammon, Jordan. So in Amman, Jordan, they find a bed, and it says this bed is 13 feet 6 inches. For those that you need a gauge, a basketball hoop is 10 feet, okay? There's no beds that are 10 feet. This one's 13 feet 6 inches and then 6 feet wide. That's how big the king was. Now, can you imagine probably what the other people are and were like from Bashan? And it says in verse 6 of Deuteronomy 3, we completely destroyed them as we had done to Sihon, king of Heshbon, destroying the men, the women, and children of every city. Can you imagine the bloodshed? 60 cities, every one of those wiped out. And here it is, verse 7, but we took all the livestock and the spoil from the cities as plunder for ourselves, because we already know that it's full of wild donkeys. We know that the pastures are incredible for flocks. We took them all, and it says in verse 8, at that time we took the land from the 2 Amorite kings across the Jordan, from the Arnon Valley as far as Mount Hermon, which the Sidonians called Sirion, but the Amorites call Senir. So different names, same place. All the cities of the plateau, Gilead and Bashan, as far as Selecah and Idri, cities of Og's kingdom in Bashan. And then he gets into verse 11, which we already read. Only Og was left over, and this is the size of his bed. I think this is crazy to me. So what we're going to say, what Moses is saying to all the Israelites, hey guys, there's already been 2 battles, right? Sihon, the king of Sihon, and the king Og, king of Bashan. Both of those were wiped out. And I want you to understand, these were preparation battles for you to go into the promised land, knowing that if God did these, you can hold on to these because he's going to do it again.
It's like he's reassuring this new generation.
Yeah.
You didn't get to see me bring your parents out of Egypt, but I'm going to be with you, and here's a whole new set of things that you can trust me for, that you're going to see.
Absolutely. Taylor, you got anything?
Are they eating manna still?
Are they still eating manna? Absolutely.
So, like, it's falling even in the woods, and it's nourishment enough to, like, fight battles. It's some good stuff.
I mean, absolutely. Until they're done in the wilderness, until they've crossed over, they're still eating the manna.
And then I think a wilderness is like the desert, but, like, they're in, like, the woods now in cities.
There's pockets that it's completely different environment. And it goes back to our conversation where when Moses is writing, remember the stages? And in those stages, they're experiencing different atmospheres, different climates. We think automatically completely barren, dry, absolutely. So this is a preparation for more battles, okay? It's an incredible picture. Now, this is part of Moses' sermon. He's releasing the word to the Israelites. Now, because of time, let's keep going here. In the preparation for the battles is going to come from verses 1 through 11. Now, Wiersbe also continues to spell it out, and then he just says, there's going to be a settling, I don't know of the land. And we know that it's going to be for how many tribes, Kevin?
2.5.
For 2.5 tribes. And the 2.5 tribes are, Rich, do you remember?
Gad and
Reuben.
Half of Manasseh.
And half of Manasseh. Hey, it was almost like a 2.5 answer right there. All right, so what you're going to see is in verses 12 through 20 is this. It says, at that time, remember, once we've won these battles, at that time we took possession of this land, and I gave to the Reubenites and the Gadites the area extending from Ariar, from the Arnon Valley, and half the hill country of Gilead along with its cities. So the battles were taking place, but now the Reubenites and the Gadites, they wanted the land. Why did they want the land? Because they had so much livestock. And they realized that this place was a fertile soil. They realized this is incredible pasture for their own herds and their flock. And I think the thing that's mind-blowing to me is that the promise of God was that they were going to all enter in the promised land, but the Reubenites and the Gadites decided they liked their own plan, and so they stayed on the Trans-Jordan side. They stayed on the east of the Jordan side because they just wanted to stay comfortable. Honestly, that's really what it comes down to, and that they could settle in. And so that's what you have, the settling in of the land. Now in verse 13, Scripture says, I gave to half the tribe of Manasseh, the rest of Gilead, and all Bashan, the kingdom of Og, and the entire region of Argob. The whole territory of Bashan used to be called the land of Rephaim. Keep going, Kevin, if you would, in verse 14. And then Jair, sounds weird, Jair, a descendant of Manasseh, okay, took over the entire region of Argob, as far as the border of the Geshurites and the Maccathites. The Maccathites, kind of a cool little fact, those are descendants from Abraham's brother, Nahor. as you can find in Genesis 22. And so after he takes over this community, he called Bashan, he renamed it after himself. It's kind of like, hey, I'm going to give money to a building and let's name it after me. I mean, that's the same concept. So Jair's villages as it is today. And then in verse 15 through 18, it really just begins to just kind of walk through the land that ended up taking place. And in fact, it just says this in verse 18, I commanded you at that time, the Lord your God has given you this land to possess. All your fighting men will cross over in battle formation ahead of your brothers, the Israelites. So now look, the Reubenites, the Gadites, and even the people from Manasseh, what did they need to do? They said, okay, we want to stay here, but the promise had to have been, you need to send all of your fighting men in order for us to get the land. And so it was kind of a deal that Moses initiated, he agreed to. You guys can stay, but make sure you send your fighting men. So he says in verse 19, but your wives, young children, livestock, I know that you have a lot of livestock, right? Will remain in the cities that I have given you. Until it says in verse 20, until the Lord gives you rest to your brothers, your fighting brothers, as he has to you, and they also take possession of the land the Lord your God is giving them across the Jordan. They haven't gone into Jordan yet. The battle has taken place. They're given the land on the Trans-Jordan side. Then each of you may return to his possession that I have given you. This word rest, we all need it. That's the truth. But the word rest that I love about this is that, Kevin, can you go to Deuteronomy 12:10? There's a theme that I never saw when I started studying the word rest in a different light. In Deuteronomy 12:10, you're going to see this. It says, when you cross the Jordan, live in the land the Lord your God is giving you to inherit, and he gives you rest. Look, from what? From all the enemies around you, and you live in security. In other words, you will find rest when there's victory. You will find rest from me when nobody is coming at you any longer. Just one more, Deuteronomy 25, verse 19. Deuteronomy 25, verse 19, again, he says, when you have rest is when there's no more fighting. When the Lord God, your God, gives you rest from all the enemies around you in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess as an inheritance. God is giving you this land. You got to go into it. That's true. You got to go into the battle. That's true. But when that battle is done, you can be rest assured the victory is done and you can find peace. You can relax. You can breathe. And I love this. And he says in verse 21, he says this in Deuteronomy 3, I commanded Joshua at that time. And now this is what you're going to have in the very third and final point, okay, that Warren Wiersbe says. First of all, you have the preparation for more battles. Then you have the settling of the land. You have the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the tribe from Manasseh, the half a tribe. But now, here's the deal. Now we're getting closer, you guys. Now we're getting closer to saying, okay, you're getting closer to the land, and how do we know? Because he begins to talk about the transfer of leadership. He reminds them that this has already happened. In verses 21 through 29, I mean, it's pretty actually unfortunate. You think about this. Moses has gone all of his life. He receives this promise to go into the promised land. He makes one mistake, literally, one mistake. Instead of speaking at the rock, he hits the rock. And because he hits the rock, he can't go in. And so then he has to transfer leadership, yes, to Joshua to help lead the young Israelites that are getting ready to cross the land. And so he says, this is what I've done. I've commanded Joshua at that time. Your own eyes have seen everything the Lord your God has done to these two kings. It's a pretty cool picture. The Lord will do the same to all the kingdoms you're about to enter. In other words, Joshua, you've already seen the battles. You've actually seen them with your very own eyes. And so whatever happened with those two battles, as you cross over into the kingdom with the Canaanites or the Jebusites or the Hittites, whatever it is, I just want you to understand all that's going to take place just what I did with these guys. Man, to me, that is the best assurance thing you can have in your back pocket. Golly, God has this. God's already taken over with this. This is already a done deal. And we know that in Numbers 27, verse 18, I mean, it's an awesome picture. We know that Numbers 27, verse 18, we know that Moses has already commissioned. He says, take Joshua, son of Nun, a man who has a spirit in him, and lay your hands on him. We know that the rest of the text then says he did this, he commissioned him. We know that based on other scenarios in Scripture in Exodus 33, Joshua serves as a servant. He's walking alongside Moses in this process. So Joshua's not just like, hey, let me be the guy. No, he serves literally in every way possible. He's up on Mount Sinai experiencing the presence of God with Moses. Joshua has been trained, the ownership has been transferred over to him that he can run with this. And it's pretty apparent. So he says in verse 22 of Deuteronomy 3, don't be afraid of them, Joshua, for the Lord your God fights for you. Over and over in the Pentateuch, you will see that the Lord is the warrior. God will fight for you. You don't need to fight this battle. This is God's. And so Joshua has this mentality. And so as this mentality takes place, Moses, I think, just starts to think, okay, wait a minute. I'm just transferring leadership and ownership to Joshua. I'm seeing all the people that are getting ready to cross over to the promised land. Hey, God, can I get one more shot at this? I don't actually think it's a jealousy thing. I don't think he's mad that Joshua's taking over. I think he legitimately wants to experience the promised land. And he says in Deuteronomy 3:23, at that time I begged the Lord, at that time I pleaded, I implored favor. Lord, I need you to answer this prayer request. Lord God, you've begun to show your greatness and power to your servant. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can perform deeds and mighty acts like yours? In other words, he's reminding God, there's none like you, God. Isn't that a song? Some of these times, Jeff, just start busting out in song. It's fine, man. And then here's what he says in verse 25. Please let me cross over and see the beautiful land on the other side of the Jordan, that good hill country in Lebanon. And I think when Moses is describing, the promised land, I don't think he's trying to describe like the hill country in the sense of like, oh yeah, I want to walk on the land and experience the honey and the milk. I think he just wants to experience God's gift for his people. How many times was Moses interceding on behalf of the people? Spare these people. I think Moses just wanted to experience the presence of God in the promised land, and this is how God responded. In verse 26, it says, but the Lord was angry with me on the account of you and would not listen to me. The Lord said, that's enough. Moses, I'm done with your prayer request. Do not speak to me again about this matter. But what God does, I think, is pretty cool. He doesn't let him cross the land, but he at least lets him see it. So it says in verse 27, go to the top of Pisgah and look to the west, the north, the south, and east, and see it with your own eyes, for you will not cross this Jordan. Moses, I'm going to let you just come up here to the top of Pisgah. I want you to just look. And then in verse 28, after you're done looking, I want you to commission Joshua and encourage and strengthen him. It's time to pass the baton. For he will cross over ahead of the people and enable them to inherit this land that you will see. What an incredible picture about how Moses literally prepares the people for something more. And it's kind of cool that the something more is two things. One is he prepares the people that there's a prophet that's coming. And then he also prepares on a smaller scale Joshua to help lead the charge. And when I think about the New Testament in a weird way, and it's maybe a stretch, but just go with me for a second, I think of John the Baptist. John the Baptist is constantly in the wilderness, right? And he's constantly saying, he's preparing the way. He's preparing the way because there's somebody else greater than me that's coming. And we know that eventually John the Baptist, even as strange as it sounds, baptized Jesus. And I don't want to say commission because we know you get the point. But because of John the Baptist, yes, baptizing Jesus, it was like a transfer of, here we go. And that's what we're going to begin to hear and see more about of the here we go in Deuteronomy. All right, guys, that's Deuteronomy 1, 2, and 3. I'm excited to start studying the Word of God with you, specifically in the 5th book of the Pentateuch. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.